Hey, this is Todd with the Storyteller Overland Beast, and I'm at Rixen Enterprise in Oregon, in Bend, Oregon, hanging out with Jim and Mike and Rudy. Sandy, Oregon, not Bend, Oregon. What am I thinking? And Mike's here to correct me and keep me straight all the time. Mike, tell me what you did. You did a few things, and I want to start from the rear and go work our way forward.
So if you see there's an additional vent. This was his chosen location because obviously he has lots of things packed in here, so he didn't want to come out the side. He wanted to come out the back here, provide additional heat, not only to the back area in the bay, but the tube dumps a little bit of heat towards the tank and all of your water connections to help prevent things from freezing. Obviously a third output, so you get a little bit better heat spread and distribution throughout the vehicle.
Cool. Working our way forward, tell us about what we did in heat and vents, continuing of what we had there, because I believe there's a vent here, and I chose the vent of the access there, so there's no extra drilling, just redirecting it in a bunch of different directions. So you had to put a dual in there, plus then we put a Y in there.
So it looks like there's two ways to go about this really. If you want to have 3 outlets, you can do a triple 3-inch faceplate, but then you have to reduce the 3-inch down to, or up to 4-inch to go with the original vent. And then you would have a 3-inch that goes out front, a 3-inch that goes in the rear. Well, in his case, he already had 2 4-inches. So we left the double 4-inch faceplate and took a Y off of one of those 4 inches. And so we have a 4 out, turns into a 3, and the 3 goes all the way to the rear. Then you got 2 4s that dump under the bench here, 1 3-inch in the rear. Helps that pressure push all the way to the rear and get good airflow back there.
Cool, so that helped me keep my plumbing warm, my cab warm. Of course, insulation on windows helps mitigate that. Of course, I like roll off in case anybody wants to know. Not Storyteller screen, just saying. And then we also did some plumbing work.
Yeah, so we replaced in the neighborhood of 40 fittings. I say the neighborhood because sometimes you lose count. We swapped all the standard crimp style fittings for what we call a flare-it. Again, flare-it. And they sell these at a plethora of places. Now, the difference between what you'll find in the store and what we use on the flare-it, these normally have a white cap, white in color, and those are for a standard PEX fitting. If you want to use the braided soft line that Storyteller uses with these, you have to use a gray cap. It's a different style cap. These seem to work great. You can tighten them up with a pair of pliers. You don't need any special tool to crimp them on. We've used them for a really long time and since early 2000s and never really see issues with them. They're a much better fitting, much more robust fitting than just a single use crimp clamp.
And that braided hose line, I believe, looks like something like this.
Correct.
Or better yet, some line that I have over here. So same stuff that's already in there, just modifying it, getting those clamps off there that are one-time useless, and not the hose clamps that I took off a bunch because those loosen up. And I think you admitted too that after time, sometimes I'll need to tighten these up by hand.
Yeah, it's not impossible that, obviously we just got this done. We've tested it for like maybe an hour. So to go bounce down the road a couple times or to put a little bit of stress on the system, check it. It's not a bad idea. If you look at this gray cap, one side's flat, one side's got a bevel. So the bevel goes over your hose till it exposes on the inside. Barb goes inside till it's flush. This goes and tightens down until you feel like it's tight enough. And normally they'll start to squeak, and then maybe another turn or so with a pair of pliers would be good. Other than that, that's all you need to do to put them on. They're real basic. You don't need any special tools to put them on. You don't need any special tools to take them off if it's leaking. You loosen it and you pull it off.
Sweet. So I think there's always a misknown thing that people say you have to pressure test these. Putting pressure in it is by the pump. Puts out about 40 psi's. It's not necessarily the pressure that's doing that. That's just putting water in the line so that we can feel that. But I think the bigger thing I found is that it's the heat. Cook that hot water running through there, let it expand, and it doesn't contract. With these lines, hopefully this isn't going in these fittings. These are not going to have that problem, but it's going to be more of something that the heat's going to get warm. I'm going to be in the coldest of cold, 20 below, and it'll not shrink back together, but it'll be a problem for it. And that's what I'm looking for to test it at those temperatures. And I think this will put it to the test and hopefully survive it.
Totally. I don't see a problem with those fittings ever, even on like where they're heated applications or they're sitting right on top of a heated box like a burner or an exchanger or something. Those fittings they're robust. And again, the nice part is you can just go tighten them up. So if you do find there's a little drip or something going on, to tighten it up is not too much trouble normally. Now, in your case, if it's buried, it maybe is hard, but
I have too many toys.
we tested it, so everything seems to be good. No leaks. The pump wasn't surging. We did find two leaks I think we found after we first pressured up the whole system after 40 fittings that we replaced.
And one of them happened to be the old fittings that we didn't see behind one of the cabinets. So hey, what do you know?
Yeah.
Still leaking.
But yeah, the fittings are they're good fittings. You can buy them anywhere. That's the
So
nice
they're
part
ready
about it.
available. So they're not like hard to come by. You can go get it at Ace Hardware, Home Depot, Lowe's, maybe something like that. Look for the flare. If not, order it online. Well worth it. Need a lot of them.
Third upgrade that we did
Yes.
was so that, in these sprinters, they really don't have that much trouble at cold weather. I've had guys say at -5 or -10, their van started perfectly fine.
Yep.
But I've had guys at -15 or -20, they were like, yeah, my van really did not want to start. It was having trouble starting, really sluggish, just acting funny. So we added, as you know, in the Storytellers, they have the engine exchanger that allows the heating system to basically steal heat from the engine and make hot air and hot water off the engine's waste heat. Well, in order to heat the engine when it's off, you have to have a pump to circulate fluid on the engine loop. So right now in his van, if the heating system is running as it is,
Which I like. Low fan, hot water, furnace, system on, get my heat. I usually keep it at 64 when I sleep, 65 sometimes. Right now I'm trying to book it up a little bit, and I got the doors wide open.
and you have your engine preheat switch on.
Yep, by the way, so that's another upgrade. That new bright light is actually on to show me that my engine warmer's on. And watch this. Haven't started up in a little bit, and it's already got 2 bars of warmth because it's warmed the engine up, ready to start.
You haven't ran the van for more than maybe 5 minutes in the last 3 hours, yeah, whatever. So the engine was well cold, and within the last 30 minutes, that engine has started to boost heat.
Right.
And then obviously you'd wake up in the morning. The goal would be to wake up, your system's running, you have your fan set, everything's warm in the van. You're like, I want to preheat the engine, so when I start it, it's nice and warm. Easier on the engine, less wear and tear on your motor because it's starting warmer. Flip your switch, wait a half hour, maybe an hour, depending on how long you want to wait. When you start the engine, it should have more heat than when you first turn the switch on. So that's the goal.
Absolutely.
Be able to preheat your engine in cold weather. Now, another cool aspect to that, so you know how the engine works to allow heat to the rear, right? When your engine is running, you can have the switch panel on, and you can have heat coming from your engine back here, heating up your air and water back here.
Right.
When you turn your engine off, that heat goes away.
Right.
But if your engine's still hot, right, and you turn that preheat switch on, you could still use the residual heat from the engine to heat your air and water. As if you stop at a rest stop and you don't want to fire up the burner, but you want to turn off the engine and take a shower or whatever, you can do that off the waste heat from the engine while the engine is off by using that switch.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other, I call it Todd tips for using any of this accessories? Like if you're not using the hot water, go ahead and turn it off, turn the water pump off. I've been doing that for a while because I had water leaks, and now I can leave it on, but I choose to kind of leave the hot water off because I don't want to bake the lines and make them cook too much because it's just putting hot water and calling for it constantly.
So the one thing that a lot of people don't understand on that panel, the furnace switch is the on-off switch for your diesel burner. So if you're running off the engine and you're trying to make hot air and hot water in the back, if you're driving down the road, driving through Montana, it's -5 degrees outside, there's no reason to have the furnace switch on. You would leave the furnace off, system, turn up your thermostat, set your fan speed, and as long as your engine's running, the engine is the substitute for the furnace switch.
Okay.
So if the furnace switch is on, that's going to be running diesel or has the potential to start your diesel and run the diesel burner. No reason to run that burner if you're producing tons of heat off the engine.
Sure.
So you keep the furnace switch off and that burner won't run.
Okay. Because I've always kept the the system on.
Yep, system
and furnace on all the time because I want it to be on based on the thermostat, because I say, okay, if it reaches a 65 and I get out for lunch and come back and the van's 60, I want it to kick on when the thermostat comes on. But you're saying actually the ideal thing is actually to turn the system off.
A system always on. The little furnace switch.
Turn the furnace switch off.
Furnace
So
is
turn
your diesel burner.
turn the furnace off. So that way it's not pulling diesel fuel and it's pulling the
heat
system
from the engine.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. I might
And
be
to say that you leave it on doesn't really hurt anything.
Okay.
But it does. It's just wasting fuel, wasting battery. I mean, you got enough battery in here, but you know, it's wasting fuel, wasting battery that doesn't need to be wasted when you're already producing all that heat on the engine,
Sure.
and your engine's just dumping it out the radiator.
Okay.
So why not utilize that and keep it in the back? That's what the whole goal behind the engine exchanger is.
Okay.
But now your engine exchanger works both ways, where you can use the engine to heat the heating system in the hot water, or you can use the heating system to heat the engine.
Okay.
And that's what that added pump.
That makes sense. Okay. So then any other tips or tricks? I've heard people say turn off the hot water because you don't need to do that when you're running down the road. I thought it was ideal at one time.
In theory, so the hot water really only needs to be on if you plan on taking a long hot shower or you don't want your hot water to run out.
Okay.
So if the hot water is on, say system, furnace, and hot water, those three switches are on, that burner is never going to let the fluid go cold. It's always going to be asking it to stay as hot as it can go. So that way when you jump in the shower and you start using water, it stays hot.
Gotcha.
In theory, if you just had the thermostat, right, and you set it at 70 degrees, thermostat becomes satisfied at 70, which means your heat production stops, which means your water goes cold almost instantly. But if the hot water switch is on, that water stays hot forever, in
Gotcha.
theory. And same thing if you're running off your engine.
Okay.
As long as your engine's running, your heat source is running, which is either the furnace switch or your engine, if you have a heat source running and the hot water's on, you'll have hot water indefinitely.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people do ask, because if you look right now, if you turn the hot water switch off, the light will stay on.
Yep.
And the light stays on because the thermostat's active. Anytime you're making hot air, it's a byproduct to make hot water.
Gotcha.
So
That makes
anytime
sense.
you're making hot air, you're making hot water no matter what. And the light's just on, indicating to you that right now, even though the switch isn't on, if you want to wash some dishes or you want to wash some, wash your face, as long as that light's on, you should have hot water.
Because it's churning and it's making it moving through here.
Correct.
Then another thing is I've like to point out is I have the recirculator button, which I will kick there, which is just taking the cold water, circulating it out of the line. It makes it in that one-way valve that we found, and it's kicking the hot water to the top. You might have to turn it on for a second for it to come out, but it comes out a lot quicker.
Instead of
when you
waiting 30 seconds or
Yeah.
20 seconds
And
for the water
wasting.
to get there. Anyways, that's the heater kick
Woohoo!
on. Heater for the building.
But that way you're not wasting hot water coming out of your faucet and
Correct.
that you only have 24 gallons of anyways.
Yep.
Cool. Pretty freaking awesome. Any other tips or tricks? I know you guys answer the phone on Christmas or Christmas Eve, I called.
If we're here, we'll answer. You can always call. And if you can't get a hold of us, you can always leave us an email. If we don't answer the phone, send an email. Sometimes voicemails don't always get checked around here, but an email to sales@Rixen, or
How about a phone number or a website?
yes, you got a 503-668-6090 is the phone number here. And the website's going to be Rixen, RIXENS.com.
There you go. That's
And,
all. That's everything.
My name's Mike, by the way.
That is
And,
Mike. The more important guy, the younger, more astute, wonderful guy. It worked on my van today. Awesome. Thank you very much for show and tell for everybody at home, and I'll air it out. And
Oh, one other upgrade we did.
Yes.
We gave you a new shower head.
Oh, yes. Have you seen the smooth, what did you call
It's
it?
called the You Me.
You, me.
And you can get them off Amazon.
You and me.
Yep, go buy them off Amazon. They're like 25 or 30 bucks, something like that.
Yeah. And that one is actually low flow, high fishing, whatever.
High pressure.
Yeah, whatever she
So
is.
it's got a really good spray, but doesn't use a lot of water. You can actually, even like, when you dialed it down,
Yeah.
you can go down to about a half gallon a minute.
Yeah.
And that's still got like a 1.5 2 foot spray.
Heck yeah.
And you think if you got 20 gallons at a half gallon a minute, that gives you 40 minutes of shower time. Versus if you're dumping 2 gallons a minute and you got 20 gallons, you got 10 minutes of shower time.
Makes
So 10 minutes or 40 minutes, it's like...
Speaking of gallons, you said something on the diesel fuel usage. I was guessing it was like a quarter of a tank because it's shutting off and on. But you said if it's full blast for 10 hours straight, you're going to use a gallon of diesel.
Correct.
On high, because it's high fan, high thing. It's trying to stay efficient. It's trying to pump out 180, close to 180 degrees ish, below 180 degrees. It's constantly trying to warm it up, and that'll burn up a gallon of diesel,
In
which is
10
probably
hours.
in 10 hours.
If it was wide open. So like doors wide open on the van, the heater never shut down,
blowing. It's,
blowing,
it's
or
cool
if
on
it's
the
like
outside.
negative 20 degrees outside, then it might burn a gallon in 10 hours. But that's the maximum amount of fuel that this burner can burn is 1 gallon in 10 hours. Most of the time you see somewhere in the neighborhood of a gallon in 24 hours of use, or a gallon in 2 days of use, something like that. Mediocre weather, 30, 40, 50 degrees, something like that.
Well-insulated van, and the heat comes out, the sun comes out the next day.
Yep.
Awesome. Any other Todd tips?
No, you know, that's about it. And if you got any questions, you can always call.
There you go.
That's your best bet. If you got any questions or anything comes up about the heating system, just give us a call.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. We'll
Have a
air it
good
out.
day.
Thank you.